traveling. And then I managed to, I started my blog, and now, alhamdulillah, I work for myself and have done for the last 3 years on my travel blog. So that's good. And last year, COVID, obviously being a travel blogger last year wasn't the best profession. So my life kind of definitely got put on hold, obviously, like everyone else's. And in that time, I had just been to a few Muslim countries like Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, and then I was in Indonesia, and I just kind of got intrigued by Islam and started learning more about it. And then a couple of months later, last August, I did my Shahada, alhamdulillah. So I've been a Muslim for, actually checking the date, it's 11 months now. So not too long.
Fantastic. And I'm aware that you made a video on your YouTube channel, and congratulations I saw you recently reached 100,000 subscribers. So hopefully you're waiting your lovely plaque from YouTube, are you? I think they send it out.
Yeah, I actually still need to apply for that, actually, because I did look into it a while ago before I hit 100, and I was like, how do you get this plaque? And then, yeah, you have to apply for it. So I've forgotten. So that reminded me, actually. So thank you.
Cool. Good stuff. So you've got a couple of you've got a few videos on there about your journey to Islam. So I'm sure many people have seen it, but I'm also sure that there may be people who haven't. So do you want to talk about your journey, like your literal journey, and then obviously what led to your eventually embracing Islam?
Yeah, definitely. So I'd say I've been like a spiritual person definitely for the last couple of years. I think like 2017, I kind of got really into a lot of different kind of what I see now as like new age spiritualism, a lot of different things. And I kind of got into very much like manifesting and the whole idea of praying, but praying more to the universe. So I used to have like a little prayer practice and mantras and stuff that I used to do, and this kind of like gratitude practice. But I definitely, aimed it at the universe rather than this idea of God. And then, yeah, like I said, I was in, I think Pakistan, like in 2019, kind of really sparked a lot of my interest because, when I was there, I met like a lot of different people, and I met a couple of Muslim women who, really did kind of show me a lot more what Islam was like, because like, I guess I'm ashamed to say, like, I've lived in the UK for all of my life, really, apart from my travels, and a few years living in Australia, lived in London for a few years, but I never had any Muslim friends. I can't even remember if I've really worked with any Muslims. I must have. I used to work for Nando's, actually, at their head office, which is a really multicultural company. So like I must have, but I don't recall it at all. So really kind of going to Pakistan, and especially speaking to women who, we see as some women in countries like that as quite oppressed. And then I realized, like, hang on, like, you're really strong, you got your own business, you're so independent. That's really kind of got my mind like thinking a lot more open and thinking about different things. Then I went to Indonesia for a little bit. I met some like kind of more local people in Indonesia who are Muslims, and we had some really good conversations. And then I went to Saudi Arabia. And Saudi Arabia for me was very much just like a travel trip. Like as soon as they opened their borders for tourism, which was like end of 2019, I was like, as soon as I can, like I'm going to Saudi Arabia. Like, I don't know why, but it intrigued me for so long. I think just because it had been closed for tourism. So I was like, what is going on here? And I just happened to, through couch surfing, actually, which was something that I'd never done before, I met a few families in Riyadh and just got welcomed in so amazingly. And, just really part of their day, I was kind of just like hanging around their house, and we would just go out for dinner and things. And we went on a road trip as well. And, a few of them, obviously they'd be like, oh, we just need to stop and pray. And that's when I really started to understand more of like what being a Muslim was like in the daily life, especially when it came to prayer. We'd stop at the mosque, or, you'd see people in Saudi, kind of on the highway, just stopping on the side of the road to pray. And I was like, what is going on, and obviously in Saudi as well, still the shops shut for prayer, the cafes shut for prayer. So a few times I got, shut out of places, and you're just waiting for prayer to finish. And when you're like that, it's like really annoying to be honest, but it's still, it made me really aware of these prayer times. And, you know, I say to my friends, like, what is it that you're doing? And how they kind of explained to me how they felt after prayer was like how I kind of tried to feel after my prayer practice that I had myself and trying to do a meditation. And that's really what got me intrigued. And then I happened to go to India. Then I came back to Saudi, was traveling around a little bit more, and I saw some videos of people going to Medina. And I was like, okay, non-Muslims can go to Medina. And I just realized that Medina was really close to Jeddah, which is where I was going. And really on a whim, I just kind of basically booked a bus, booked a hotel. And before I know it, I was like in Medina, which now I realize is a really big deal. Obviously, at the time, I was a little bit blasé about it as well, because I didn't really realize just how big of a deal that is to be able to go there. And I had a really amazing 2 days, and it was so amazing just to see Muslims from, all over the world, wearing different clothes, different skin colors, and just, groups of women, groups of men, families, couples. It was just so lovely. And it really does have this such peaceful, atmosphere. And then like literally just after that, like about a week after that, I went back to India, and then after that, like lockdown happened. So that all kind of happened, and it left me with a lot to think about. And then lockdown happened, and I was in Indonesia, and all of a sudden I had a lot of time to think about things. And, I still was speaking to a couple of friends that were in Saudi, and, Ramadan was kind of approaching as well. And that's really what got me thinking about it. And, obviously being in COVID, when we didn't really know what was going to happen, it was quite a scary time as well, I think, and for me, I really kind of turned to that prayer practice and was kind of like, let's give, asking God a go, for protection instead. And that's kind of how it started. And then I kind of got interested in, okay, like, how do you pray as a Muslim? And then that's when I started that. And then as kind of maybe about a month later, then Ramadan came around. I was in Indonesia. I literally lived across the road from a mosque where I was living in Indonesia. So I was like, okay, I had some Indonesian friends that were fasting, so I decided to fast. And that was also a huge catalyst for obviously learning more. I read the whole Quran during that time. There was like nothing going on in travel blogging, so I really did kind of just say, like, have the month off working, leave your blog alone, just learn, fast, sleep, it's fine, just kind of relax. And then after that, I wanted to keep on praying. I kind of got a better prayer practice during Ramadan. Like towards the end, I was trying to really like pray 5 times a day in the last 10 days, because I realized how special they were. And that's then it kind of snowballed after that. And then I came back to the UK in July, nearly a year ago, actually. And I kind of knew before I left Indonesia that I wanted to do my Shahada, but I also realized that I was in kind of like a bubble on this tiny little island across the road from a mosque with Muslims around me. And I was like, let me get home, back to my family, back to my kind of like more like normal life, and think, do I still feel the same way? But I did, and I was still kind of praying. I think I wasn't praying as much. I remember obviously in the summer now here, the prayer times are so long, whereas in Indonesia, the time doesn't really change in Indonesia. So I was like, wow, like, they're totally so early and so late. But yeah, I realized it was something that I still wanted to do. And then in August, I went to London, and then I did my Shahada. So, and I think before that, I kind of got to a point where I'd like hit a wall basically, whereas I was like, I'm praying as a Muslim, I'm trying to think like a Muslim, trying to do certain things, even when it came to like dressing, I was like becoming more conscious of what I was wearing slowly. And I kind of even felt to a point where I was learning, I felt like a sponge, like where I'd learned like so much that like I couldn't learn anymore, because I also like wasn't Muslim yet. So I was like, I feel like I need to like take that step and that leap in order to, and that commitment in order to say like, this is what I am, and then to kind of go from there, because I was like, I can't just keep praying and doing all of this like without being Muslim. So I kind of just have to make this commitment that I am, and to see what happens.
It sounds like it was the process was very organic. Like, it doesn't feel like any stage that you felt pressured to do it, or you it feels like from what you're saying, that the pressure almost was from within it. Just the timing seemed to work for you, and you were very much listening to yourself and when you were ready. And and that's definitely really refreshing to hear, you know. And we've spoken about this before, like, you know, you certainly come across, you know, from following you on Instagram and whatnot, that your whole journey seems to have been very, very organic. It seems to have been very natural, and I think that really leads to a healthy relationship with Islam, and a healthy development and growth, really.
Yeah, no, definitely. I agree. Yeah. And I think we kind of had this conversation before as well, that, you know, I feel like, I know a lot of people come to Islam for different reasons. And I think there's, you know, so much beauty in that as well. You know, no one has the same story at all. And it's also like why you can never, you know, compare yourself to someone else's story or progress, because it's also so different, which mashallah is amazing. But definitely for me, you know, I was very happy before, you know, alhamdulillah, I've had a very good life, very, you know, I'm very grateful for my life. And, you know, I didn't really have, it wasn't something that I had something bad before. And then I was really looking for, you know, a direction either. And yeah, you know, now when I look back as well, there's so many amazing things, you know, even, you know, even like people say, you know, what is it like trying to not eat bacon and stuff? But like, I've been a vegetarian mostly for the last kind of 10 years. Actually, I kind of seem to eat a bit more meat now, more than I actually have before. And I'm still kind of getting into my mind, like halal meat. But, you know, in terms of like bacon and stuff, like I haven't eaten bacon since like, I don't know, 2013 anyway, you know, so like, that's not a problem. And, you know, there are certain other things, even like, you know, the way you dress and stuff, you know, I've got friends that are like, you know, we're in our 30s now. So they're like, you know, I just dress wearing longer dresses and this now. So that's just a natural part of kind of us growing up anyway. And things like going out drinking and stuff, that was something that I kind of decided anyway that I wanted to cut back on, and had done for the last couple of years anyway. So now when it came to like, okay, you can't do those things, it was kind of stuff that I'd already put into place anyway, without kind of necessarily realizing it. So yeah, alhamdulillah, I feel grateful for that as well.
Fantastic, really interesting. I just want to pick up on something that you mentioned earlier. So you said that you'd always felt kind of spiritual, and you already had a kind of a routine that you were in of prayer, manifestation, and but then you said that you decided to ask God, and is that something that you'd done before?
I think, oh, good question. Because I grew up in, you know, going to a school where we, you know, it wasn't a Christian school purely, but, you know, we used to sing hymns, all that kind of thing. I think it's pretty typical of a primary school, especially kind of like 20 years ago. And, you know, we used to go to church with my dad. My family are, on my dad's side, are Catholic Irish as well. So, you know, so I always kind of, in the past, I remember like as a child, like maybe when things felt like they were going wrong, like, okay, let me give this prayer to God a go. And, you know, and I knew the kind of Christian prayer as well. But I think as an adult, really, and especially since this 2017 time where I was more into like more like new age stuff, then yeah, I wouldn't say that had kind of come to my mind. No, not towards God. Although actually, no, actually that's such a lie, because I actually have a book that's called, what's it called? Oh my gosh, it's something to do with God. It's a really good podcast I listened to of this man who's Christian, and he wrote this book about, he said that he kind of had this no, that's what it's called, Conversations with God, and he had this conversation with God when things were really bad in his life. And it was a really interesting book, and I actually still read that and related it to like the universe rather than God. And now I'm not really too sure what my mind would think about it, but yeah, so it had been kind of on my mind, I guess, a little bit.
It's almost like a stepping stone. It was like, I mean, I think so. There was already some kind of belief in something unseen, at least, you know, a higher power, as it were. And it sounds a little bit in a cliche, but would you say that's true? You did have some belief in a power or a higher power? Or...
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and definitely more than like my friends, like especially in those few years, I was like the woo-woo friend who was like talking about this, trying that, and they're like, okay, you're a bit crazy, but it's fine. And so yeah, and I used to kind of think like, yeah, like how come my friends aren't, you know, they're quite open-minded, or people that I worked with, you know, who perhaps, you know, you're just like working with, you don't pick them as friends so much. And yeah, I'd kind of always kind of like be like, why isn't your mind as like, why can't you think about this as well? And actually you kind of have this like belief of nothing. And I used to like think that was really strange, because I definitely did have a belief in something, and quite an open mind also to understand maybe what other people believed. Maybe I didn't, but I still kind of could see it.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned in your video on YouTube, you mentioned that there were a couple of moments that were kind of catalysts. And you mentioned in was it in India you were visiting? Where was it, a tomb that you visited?
Yeah, so it was called Akbar's tomb, and that was my second tour, because just before COVID hit, I ran 2 group tours for women to India. So that was our second time in Agra within the month. And the guide said, this is Akbar's tomb. And he says, do you know what Akbar means? And he says, it means the great. And he's like, it's like Muslims say Allahu Akbar. And I was like, oh, and then obviously having been in Saudi and having heard the Adhan for, you know, a couple of weeks, it was just, things like that just really kind of clicked to me. And there was a few things then, and I spent 4 months in India, 6 months on 2 different trips in India the year before. And I was much more kind of, you know, I went to quite a few Hindu temples, Buddhist sites, and, you know, I really didn't see much of the Muslim culture at all in India, even though obviously it's extremely prominent. But, you know, I think as a tourist, it's more focused on that kind of like the Hindu sites and things. And so it wasn't until that time either, back in India, which was like the 4th time I think that I'd been there, where I started to realize like, oh yeah, there's all of these amazing Muslim sites. And, you know, even you thinking about the Taj Mahal, like I remember, you know, knowing that the Taj Mahal was closed on a Friday, because I nearly went on a Friday, and I just couldn't believe that I might not be able to go to the Taj Mahal. And then I knew that it was closed on a Friday, and then I forgot, and then I got there at the wrong time anyway. But I'd never questioned like, why is it closed on Friday? But then of course it was like, oh yeah, there's, you know, not the whole site is a mosque, but there is a mosque on site at the Taj Mahal, and that's why it's closed on a Fridays, because the locals go and pray there. And so it wasn't until that last time back in India, after having been in Saudi and a few other Muslim countries, that I started to notice more. And, you know, that was also, I felt like that was a huge sign as well.
Mm-hmm. And also what came across was the prayer, like, and watching people pray seems to have been quite a powerful sight.
Yeah, I remember the first time actually I saw people pray was in Islamabad in Pakistan. And I remember, we were there on a Friday, and it was just really, really busy. It was just before Maghrib. Obviously, I didn't really realize that at the time. And I remember the people that I was with, they were like, you know, you have to go in this door as a woman, we go in this door. And I thought we would meet in the middle, because before this as well, I'd only ever been in mosques as like a tourist. So, you know, mosques that are kind of more open for tourism, like in Abu Dhabi, and I'd been to kind of a few in like Kuwait and Beirut and things, but, you know, they were normally empty, and, you know, you just walk in as a tourist, you see everything, the dome, take a few photos, then walk out. Whereas this was, you know, as a woman, I walked in, and then I went onto the balcony, and I just could not get my head around the idea that I was on the balcony as a woman and all the men were at the bottom. And I was like, this is so unfair. You know, I just didn't understand at all like why that would be. And that obviously then brought up a lot of negative thoughts about Islam that, you know, a lot of us do here, especially because we don't understand a lot of it before you're Muslim as well. But then I did stand and watch from the balcony, and I watched like all of the men pray, and there must have been kind of like getting on like 100 men just in front of me, and it really, really was an amazing sight as well. And that was the kind of point where it was like you're starting to ask questions and question things as well.
Okay, and what was it about the prayer that you found that affected you?
I think
from witnessing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just the fact that it's just done in so much unison as well. I think I've always kind of yeah, I found that really interesting. And then I've always just loved the Adhan. And I think, you know, I've heard that from a lot of people who aren't Muslim as well. And when they're traveling to Muslim countries, you know, hearing the Adhan for people, you know, is so moving. And, you know, I remember one of the first times I heard it, I think for the first time when I can really recall, in Bosnia, which was like 2015. And then I remember I went to Turkey, and where I was staying, there was a mosque really close to my room. And I remember hearing it. And at first it like shocked me. It scared me a little bit, because, you know, when you're always like, what is this? And then I was like, oh yeah, wow. Like, I feel like, yeah, I'm like in the Middle East now. And I think, you know, a lot of people, yeah, I've heard that from a lot of travelers. I mean, no one has, from the travelers I've heard, like Fajr, like most people hate that one. Most people moan about that, especially if they're like staying in a hostel or a hotel near a mosque. But apart from that one, you know, a lot of people say that they, you know, they do really like the Adhan. And I think that's really beautiful, that even as non-Muslims that don't understand what it is, it does have an impact on people for sure. And now as a Muslim and understanding it, I find that even more interesting.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So in terms of the countries that you visited, was Bosnia the first Muslim country?
Yes, yeah, I think that, yeah, definitely that one was, because before that I'd been to Southeast Asia and South America, where, you know, mostly Buddhist really, and then Christian in South America. So yeah, thinking about it, Bosnia would have been the first country, yes.
Mm-hmm. And when it came to like looking back, when it came to choosing kind of your next destination, what were the kind of things that would appeal to you, what would influence your decision?
Well, definitely, I just do definitely love countries that are like not as visited as much. And so I think people have a more negative stereotypical view of, which at the moment is Muslim countries really. And I actually did, you know, before COVID, at the start of 2020, going to Saudi gave me a lot of confidence that, you know, countries are not as bad as what they're made out to be. The people there are lovely. You know, you can meet some really nice people there. Sorry if you can hear people. It's like my sister's birthday this weekend and my other housemate's birthday this weekend, so we've just got a house full of girls.
No, it's good.
That have been out. So sorry if you can hear any screaming soon. And yeah, so I had this whole list of countries that I really wanted to go to, and they all happened to be Muslim countries actually. And obviously I didn't get to go to any of them, but, you know, I remember then thinking again, like, this was even before I was, you know, wanting to become Muslim. I was like, oh, it's interesting that these are the countries I want to go to. But now I also see that as a real kind of, you know, I'm very grateful for COVID in a lot of ways. Obviously, you know, it's been terrible, but in other ways for us. But also, you know, I think if I'd gone to these countries without being Muslim already, I wouldn't have understood it. Whereas now I'm really looking forward to going to some of these countries, going to like Syria, I want to go to Afghanistan, I want to go to Yemen, I want to go to a lot of different countries. And now I'm Muslim, I'm going to have, hopefully, inshallah, a much better experience and understand the culture much more than I would have before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the questions that you were asked before was how much that travel actually influenced your decision and would you say that's a
yeah, for sure. Yeah, like I said, I didn't know any Muslims growing up. I grew up in quite a small town. It was very white. I think in these days it's a little bit more diverse. I did actually go to the mosque there actually, so that was nice to realize there was a mosque there. Mm-hmm. There obviously always has been, but I just didn't realize. But yeah, didn't kind of grow up in a very multicultural area at all. And yeah, so 100% did. And I think, you know, even for me, going to definitely Saudi itself, and even going out to Medina, and even Medina had a huge part, but even, you know, for me, being able to see Saudi Arabia, see the desert and see those old towns and the old villages and get an understanding of what life was actually like 1400 years ago, you know, what the buildings were like, you know, it's really given me a lot of insight. And, you know, there's definitely a lot of things that I, you know, kind of question when it comes to Islam, things that we're supposed to do. I really do try and take it back to, okay, like, what was it like 1400 years ago? And because I've kind of seen a little bit, you know, mm-hmm. Saudi has kind of kept a few of those older, you know, older towns and things, you know, mm-hmm. I feel like I've got a bit of a better idea of what it was like, and I can imagine it better. You know, I can kind of imagine what the houses might have been like, or the first mosque might have been like in Medina and things like that. And so, like, you know, I think for people who have become Muslim, who haven't seen that, I think like, wow, mashallah, like that's really amazing, because that does really help me in understanding a lot of things in Islam as well, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. And what was it like having an audience basically, and sharing your journey, your journey to Islam with your audience? How did that feel?
Yeah, so to be honest, I kind of didn't really, because I shared, I had the Wandering Quinn, my travel accounts, and during Ramadan, like I shared that I was fasting, but a lot of people were, I was in an Islamic country, so they were kind of, I had a lot of people like, oh, it's really great you're taking part in the local culture, which I was, but I had like an alternative motive, I guess, as well. So people, didn't really question that at all. And even once I did my shahada, then I still didn't say anything online for about a month. And it wasn't until I think then I just got to Istanbul afterwards, and I shared that online then once I was there. And then I created my second account, the Quinn account as well. So I did really make a conscious effort, especially like even though I knew I was going to do my shahada, and actually I followed a couple of Muslim women who were kind of like travelers, and I'd been following them, and me and them would chat a little bit. And I remember like after I did my shahada, like I told, I was like trying to find like, who have I been speaking to recently to tell them, because I was really excited, but I didn't want to put too much on there. So I did make a conscious effort, not to share anything until, about a month, 6 weeks later. And that was something that I was definitely pleased with as well. And I think for me, I'm also grateful that, a lot of my learning, all of my learning, was basically done via YouTube and a couple of books. And I was really pleased that I kind of got to choose what I wanted, not what I wanted to listen to or learn, but I didn't really have any other external comments or judgments, or even from Muslims, really, I guess really what I'm referring to as well. In there, it was very much like it was just me, and and even when it comes to, on that note, like even when it came to learning, I know some people have found it really hard with mosques being shut, but I think for me, COVID as well has been a really good time to be able to learn more about Islam. It's been a really good time to find my own teaching resources. Like personally, I'm really pleased that I didn't just go to a local mosque, listen to what they said, and kind of took that as, that's what it is, and I think obviously, like in every kind of thing during COVID, a lot of the top people in the world, whether you're scholars, a yoga teacher, whatever, they put everything online, and all of a sudden there's much more access to things that, kind of like if you didn't live near someone or in that particular town, you didn't have access to. So I'm really grateful for that. And I'm really grateful that I managed to learn from like a kind of variation of resources, and that didn't affect my thinking either. Kind of like I did do it very much by myself. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I remember when you told me this, I was like, and you say how much you learned from YouTube, and normally, like I'm thinking, God, someone learns from like YouTube, it can be like one of the worst places to learn, because there's just, it's unrestricted. Anyone can kind of put stuff out there. So I think there's probably a lot of people who have kind of learned Islam from YouTube, and it's actually been detrimental for them. So it's like, for me, I just thought, mashallah, that's Allah's really taking care of you there by just like, I don't know, inspiring me the right stuff to search for and showing you the right stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely feel very guided in that way as well. I kind of had a rule that like if the person was like shouty, I was just turn it straight off, and I kind of there was people that I, like Yaqeen Institute, they're a big one that I speak about a lot, because I kind of listen to a few different scholars that are part of their platform, and I really enjoy the way that they speak. I really enjoy the way that they deliver things. I've listened to a lot of their podcasts, so so things like that. I think as you get through, you kind of start recognizing the names. Like Mufti Menk was one that I listened to a lot. I haven't really listened to him for a while. Maybe I think there was a few videos recently that I was a bit like, no, I don't know about. So but that's fine as well. And I think so I definitely, although I say YouTube, and I still try, I'm cautious of when I say this to other people as well, because like you, I'm very aware that there's a lot of videos on there that might not be correct, and also just like people's opinion, or there's a lot of different things. But I think when you find a channel that you enjoy watching, the the people are for me, it's like how they talk. Yeah. So I like it when people are delivering something very well, especially if they're talking, you know, and they're relating it back. And also another big thing for me is actually listening to people who, you know, live in the US, live in Canada, live in the UK, because, you know, they understand our Western culture, and apply a lot of those things to our life. I think, you know, if you listen to someone who didn't, I think that's also quite hard to relate to them as well. So yeah, so I definitely still need to be mindful, but it is an amazing platform as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the no shouty rule, I think that's a really good filter. Like if the person's shouting, it's just not nice. Like no one really wants to be shouted at, I think, especially
exactly.
when discussing something in Islam and like a beautiful spiritual journey. Like that shouldn't, I don't know, that it seems to be common sense. So you wouldn't really want someone shouting at you about those kind of things.
Yeah, but there's a lot of them on YouTube. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, Yakin, that they do some really amazing stuff, and it's good to see like really good quality and like well-made content coming through that's kind of backed by scholars and whatnot. And the idea of trying to filter what authority, basically, who basically has the authority to speak, that's something that the wider Muslim community struggle with too. And there tends to be a recommendation from teachers when they're teaching Muslims is just be wary of what you find on the net, because you're always going to find contradictions. And I'm speaking here about the kind of the heritage Muslim, the wider Muslim community. So I can imagine that scope for confusion is compounded if you're kind of exploring and you're new to the faith. So alhamdulillah, it's really, really great that it worked out well, and that you were able to identify kind of trustworthy sources, and I guess a lot of it's common sense, but I think that can be clouded sometimes by particularly someone who's new or just taking a faith is a kind of I can imagine as a kind of euphoria, like, oh my god, all Muslims are just amazing around the world, and they're all saying the best stuff, and everyone's a saint and all this kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, yeah, another thing, just as you were saying, that just came to my mind is, and actually, because like going to Google, like for everything else, you know, I Google everything like everyone, but actually, you know, something that I don't really Google is stuff to do with Islam, because a lot of things, I think a lot of the first pages that come up can be like chat rooms and that kind of thing, that kind of old chat forum, you know, and I've seen some advice on there that I've just remembered thinking like, oh, you know, I think one was, it was to do with makeup and women, and you know, and it wasn't, I was trying to look for an answer, and you know, it wasn't an answer, it was just like, this is haram, this is haram, this is haram. And it was like, this isn't helpful. Like I'm trying to find the answer to my, you know, to my question, not just don't do it, it's haram, you know. So I think one is, definitely also stay away from any kind of chat rooms, and more conscious, probably cautious of what I find on Google and online. And then something else that I do try and do as well, you know, if I am searching for a particular thing or a particular question, you know, is trying to look for different answers. You know, I think if you go onto something, or you listen to a few different videos, and you know that they're all saying the same thing, you know, there's maybe 3 things, and you can probably, you know, not guarantee, but it makes you feel more confident that is probably the answer. But if you go on something and one person saying this, then one person saying this, and one person saying this, then it doesn't even necessarily mean that any of them are particularly wrong. But obviously, you know, we know there is different sects of Islam. There are different, you know, people that do believe slightly different stuff on some subjects. And, you know, that for me is where I'm like, okay, I still need to look into this more, or decide maybe what fits for me in my life and what I believe, if there's not actually a clear answer on it. So I think also, you know, looking more than once for an answer on different platforms, different people, is also really important.
I mean, you mentioned Google, but I mean, even like the even like the YouTube comment section, it's notorious, isn't it? It's and even stuff on Instagram too, I imagine. I mean, how do you kind of deal with, like, I mean, like what was your first impression when you see, oh, this is haram, or this isn't allowed, this is forbidden? Like, where were you at in terms of your Islam? Were you able to filter that out, or did you think, oh God, I need to check this out?
Yeah, I think for me, because I had met a few Muslim friends before, you know, and I'd been out on, you know, I've been living in Indonesia, and this before COVID, it was like a very party island. And, you know, a lot of my Muslim friends that I've met there were out partying, out drinking, smoking, all of this kind of thing. And it was, you know, interesting conversations with them about like, well, are you actually supposed to be doing this? So I think, you know, that aside, you know, when it did come to what is haram, what is halal, you know, I'm not necessarily saying obviously that's right, but it definitely had already given me a slightly more open mind into, again, just because some Muslims do something doesn't mean that that is Islam. Like, and that's definitely something that I also realized, you know, Islam is Islam, and what Muslims do are what people as Muslims do. But, you know, I think it gave me a bit more of an open mind into, yeah, not questioning things, you know, and even the music thing, you know, I mean, all of my Muslim friends that I've met, you know, they all listen to music, and some people say you're not allowed to, you know, and it just makes you question. I think it's made me question things a little bit more as to like, okay. And then, you know, from me personally with things like that, I've kind of decided, you know, okay, actually, yeah, there are a lot of songs with like really bad lyrics. And actually something that I'd been doing actually even a couple of years ago was really filtering out what I'd been listening to and really changing kind of like the artist anyway. So actually that really fit with what I was already doing anyway. So, you know, in that example for me, you know, I was like, okay, I'm not going to see it as completely haram, but actually I do agree that, yeah, maybe, you know, a lot of what we listen to is quite terrible. So, you know, so I think that, yeah, thankfully, because I had that outlook from some Muslim friends anyway, it kind of gave me a bit more of an open mind to really kind of look at things as not as haram and halal. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, particularly, I mean, there's unfortunately, I think one of the things that converts are exposed to, and even with COVID, there's still an online presence of, you know, everyone's very quick to share their tuppence worth on what's, you know, and often they're well-meaning, but some, you know, they may be well-meaning, but sometimes it's misguided. It's not based upon knowledge, and everyone needs to study Islam, and that's something that the heritage Muslims, they primarily, I think, learn from what they see, but everyone has to kind of go through that process where they learn from a teacher and not merely just kind of infer it from. One thing that I wanted to touch on is this idea of this culture and religion, because you mentioned in one of your videos that traveling helped give you that, you were able to actually be aware of this distinction between culture and religion. Do you want to?
Yeah, no, definitely. Like I remember when I was in the stages of, yeah, just learning more. I think it was just before Ramadan. I don't know whether I watched a video about it probably, or I was speaking to someone about it. And definitely when it clicked to me that there is religion and then there's, yeah, culture, there's Muslim culture in Muslim countries. And actually they're quite different things. I remember that really, really like just blew my mind and really, really kind of set me forward on learning, because, you know, obviously if you just think about the most typical things of like, you know, women, you know, you go to some countries and, you know, women are not out in the workplace, in the public space, which, you know, you do get a lot in like India and Pakistan, and in Saudi as well. Obviously I'd been quite aware of that in Saudi and the kind of different women's movements in Saudi recently. And, you know, that for me really did just, you know, and because then I was in Indonesia, and in Indonesia, like generally, especially a lot of the places where I'd spent, the women actually have a very prominent, you know, they're the ones out at work generally, and then the guys are just chilling, from what I see a lot of the time. So it's like, well, you're all Muslims, yeah, you're all Muslims, so like, what's going on? And then when I realized, yeah, that really doesn't have anything to do with Islam. And actually, then if you look at the, you know, the history, you know, women were out in the workplace. And, you know, if you listen to hadiths and things about the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, you know, you really do see that women were working, and that isn't the case. And I think that really did it got me to really just question much more in Islam. And I think, you know, questioning is just so important, even if you, you know, there are still things right now that I did do a video about this actually, about like doubts about Islam, and like, you know, one of them was just like, if I think something's not completely right, or it doesn't seem fair, or this or that, you know, it's generally because I just haven't understood it enough, or and something that I need to research more on my own, and just not take it as face value. You know, even for things like, you know, women not praying when they're on the menses, for a while I was just like, why is this? And I thought this was kind of like so unfair. And then you kind of look into it, why, and you realize. But yeah, definitely for me, that really got me to a point where I was able to question things a lot more. And, and I think it's something I really do urge people. I've had messages from people, DMs from people. And I think, just going to maybe go out straight out there and say it, but like there's people who, people come to Islam for different reasons. And I think there are reverts who come to Islam like through having met a partner who's Muslim. And, I've had messages from people who have said things, and, it's like, actually, that is very much that I don't think it's what's going on in your relationship or how you, like, it's much more culture. And I think that's really, really important. And I think, even if you have reverted and you have people around you that are Muslims and that are born Muslims, like, it's still so important to, question like what they're saying and to do your own research on things. Prayer is a big one, and actually a lot of, I get comments when I share things about women praying, and, and there are a lot of girls that got brought up to think that, women shouldn't go to the mosques or should be praying in a corner because there's like a hadith about it or something. And I think that is a very cultural thing. So it is just so important to, to look into that yourself and really question no matter who is around you as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, to be honest, this idea of culture and religion is a discussion that goes on. And I think even, again, it's an issue that affects the heritage Muslim community too. I mean, so many Muslims in the UK, and I imagine in many of the countries, don't necessarily distinguish between culture and religion, and they kind of learn religion via the medium of their culture. And it's only until someone questions it or they travel somewhere else they realize, actually, wow, okay, this is actually from religion and this is from culture. And I've got friends who are on Instagram, and they're kind of scholars and imams, and they and he does a Q&A, one in particular, and he does a Q&A and he shares his questions and the answers that come through. And I'm like shocked. I'm like, wow, I can't believe that born Muslims have these questions and we're actually taught this. And it beg your pardon, some of it is so wacky, it's so far out. From one hand, I'm like seriously, and on the other hand, like, alhamdulillah, there's a platform that exists that people can kind of have these misconceptions.
Yeah, they can ask at least. Yeah, and you can, definitely. And I think, one of the, there's a lot of people, who watch my videos, for example, it's a lot of born Muslims as well. Like, I definitely know that. And I know, I think there's like two reasons a lot of born Muslims like watching reverts as well. Is like, one is, I think it's nice to see someone who's excited about, something that you've always had your whole life, and I think it gives people that kind of extra boost of faith, as well as like, oh, this is what I've already got, and now you're really struggling for it, or, you became Muslim, like, this must be a really good thing. And then two is definitely the idea that, maybe we're like questioning things more or sharing, that's why, I do try and share as much as I can on my profile, and especially around, like even things like prayer. Like, if, a born Muslim girl or woman can kind of see that and thought, oh, that's what I've always been brought up thinking, but actually that isn't correct now. And it doesn't matter how old you are when you realize that, I think that that's a really nice thing for me to be able to share. And it's also, amazing platform that we can share those things on as well. So I think, born Muslims do also like reverts, because we kind of take, like, maybe a lot of people that they're watching do take the culture out of it and actually do kind of, I don't want to say teach, but like, make born Muslims question it as well, which, I think is really good. And that's something that I never expected, to be honest, from like sharing what I did. That really wasn't something that I expected would happen. And that would be a reason why born Muslims would enjoy watching, or, if actually get information from what I'm saying. I didn't expect that at all. So that was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, like, the fact that learning and knowledge was such a key part of your journey is, I would say, and I say as someone who's born into a Muslim household, like my learning didn't begin until I kind of recommitted later in life, in my kind of early 20s. And prior to that, I would have, I suspect you may have known more than me after a kind of couple of months of researching, and it's literally like that. And I think a lot of kind of heritage Muslims are like that in the UK. So I'm never surprised by although I say that, but I am surprised by the level of, the lack of knowledge really of Islam, even amongst Muslims. In terms of this culture and religion distinction, for a lot of converts, or not, I wouldn't say a lot, but for many converts, the idea of culture and religion as an identity is often a struggle that they go through. We've had one of our previous guests here on Sunday Night Live, Mustafa Davis, who's a filmmaker from California, living in Turkey, and he is someone who traveled the world, in studying from kind of West Africa to Syria, to Yemen, to Sudan, and he visited all of these places. And he said, I tried to be Yemeni when I went to Yemen, I tried to be Syrian when I went, etc. And he said, and it's only when I got back to California that I realized that I'm just a kid from California. And that's when his Islam felt most natural. Is that something that you went through, or?
Yeah, I think definitely. It's definitely something that I'm still probably working through and probably will do. I think, even when it came to me, coming back to the UK at the start of this year, and if, we take the example of like dressing, for me, the idea of modest dressing, I think I did kind of click earlier on this year that like, hang on, yeah, some, South Asian dresses, they're really, really beautiful, but I'm not South Asian. So like, I don't want to dress like a South Asian woman, and some Arab, wearing an abaya, great when I'm in Saudi, great when I'm in an Arab country, great when I'm going to a mosque or like Eid prayer perhaps, but, I'm not an Arab. So I don't want to dress like an Arab in the UK either. Like, I'm British. And, one of the reasons why I did my Shahada in the UK as well is because, it kind of dawned on me like, oh, just how many British Muslims there are. And, I really wanted to be like a number towards people in Britain converting to Islam. And I think that also really strongly more tied me to my identity as someone who's British. And, for me, like traveling as well, I've been to so many places, but I do, I'm so grateful for the amazing facilities and amazing things that we have here in the UK. Like, the more I go away, the more I'm so grateful for actually what we have in the UK, even though there's a lot wrong with our government, all that kind of stuff. But, we're very, very lucky. So, I do identify, I am proud to be British, and I'm happy being white and blonde. So, for me, it's like, I don't want to dress. Yeah, I don't want to be someone that I'm not. So that's definitely something that I'm really trying to work towards at the moment. And even, for example, in terms of dressing, like, I'm trying to, dress in like a Western way, in a way that I maybe would have before, but it's just slightly more modest, or, as slowly going forward, do plan to wear hijab more, inshallah. So, and to team that with just with a kind of, Western outfit. And I think, that for me is key. And I think, one thing that I really did listen to a lot when I was in the process of doing my, like, wanting to revert, I did listen to a lot of YouTube videos, and people who were saying, they kind of had this identity crisis. They kind of, reverted, then they kind of lost, changed a lot of their friends, maybe they weren't speaking to their family as much. They, really did kind of go, fall into it in a way. And then kind of after a while, just realize, like, hang on, like, who am I? And, for me, I'm really trying to hold on to that. And, and yeah, like I shared that post recently about kind of, things changing in your life and having to, let go of certain things in your kind of like past life in order to make room for other things. And, for me, I'm like trying to hold on to my identity. I'm trying to, I'm like, I've still got the same friends. I'm still, I live with my sister, and, they do a lot of things that people would see as though it is haram. But it's like, I'm fine with that, because it's not me doing it, it's my family, and it's my sisters, and I'm happy with that. And I think that's, for me, is also how I feel very happy as a Muslim now, that I know what I believe in my heart, and I don't need to be someone else, and I don't need to have completely different friends or a completely different situation around me, if that makes sense. Like, obviously I hope in time things will change, but at the moment, everything's still very new. It's only been a year and we're still only just come out of lockdown.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and I think listening to you talk and what you share, I personally have witnessed converts who come to the same conclusions after maybe a 5 or 10 year period. So it's nice, and it's refreshing to hear. that you've kind of you've reached like the right conclusions with, you know, in a lot less time, and, you know, with a lot less, you know, I guess I think if someone does go down a different route, and they try and change too much, they can alienate the family, they can do all kinds of things, and that stuff can take years. I mean, that can take years to correct. And, you know, and I've spoken to converts who are still kind of 15, almost 20 years after their Islam, and they're still trying to repair relationships, which is obviously quite difficult. And so alhamdulillah, it's nice to hear it done in almost a very natural and a level-headed and a rational way, I guess. So that's kind of, you know, nice to hear, I guess.
Yes, no, that is really nice. Yeah, alhamdulillah, that's really nice.
Yeah. Cool. What I wanted to do, we had a few questions come in, but I wanted to invite questions from the audience, if that's okay. So if people either want to raise their hands and unmute themselves, or if you want to type a question in the chat for Ellie, I'll kind of read them out as and when they come through. I know you have a video on YouTube where you answer quite a few questions of the.
Yeah, but no, it's definitely good for questions. Yeah, I'm just having a look in the chat as well. I think someone asked in the chat as well, what is the best Quran? And I know, Emma replied as well, saying the clear Quran. She's tried a lot. So yeah, I also agree. I've been reading the clear Quran recently, and I think it's really good. So I definitely recommend that one as well.
A question: how do you deal with any online judgment?
Yes.
It can be so harsh. You don't deserve it.
Yeah. So basically, my YouTube comments, I don't look at my YouTube comments, to be honest, because they're a mixed bunch, and it's always typical that, you know, you dwell on the negative way more than the 100 positive, but the one negative. So I don't really look at that one. YouTube, Instagram, to be honest, I really don't have too much negative comments, and yeah, alhamdulillah, I haven't really had much at all. And actually the new feature on Instagram where you can block people, and you blocked all of their accounts, so they can't create a new account anymore, is definitely good, because I had an issue with like a random stalker a while ago who just kept creating another account. I was like, go away. So now there's that feature. But I must say, like, for me, like online stuff that I've had, you know, I felt very lucky. I did have one time where I got a lot of bad comments coming through all sorts of every social media that I had, from a video that someone made about me. But I was just, you know, firstly, I was very grateful that it didn't happen in real life. You know, I was very like, I can shut my laptop, I can shut my phone, and they're gone. You know, it's not like I'm at school when I'm being bullied as maybe as a child, or, you know, in a workplace or something. So I was very grateful of that. And for me, you know, I think there's so much positivity online as well. And there's so many people who, you know, just, you know, I really do I'm so appreciative of the amazing support and the amazing love that I have had from people online, that I really do try and focus on that instead.
Oh, wonderful. How have your family reacted to you converting to Islam?
Yeah, so they were fine with it. I told my mum, she knew that I'd been like fasting for Ramadan, and I actually told my mum about a friend of mine who did her shahada before I did mine. So I kind of like dropped a little seed in there, the fact that like people do it. And then a few weeks later I was like, oh yeah, you know that girl I met, like, yeah, I'm gonna go and do my shahada as well and become Muslim. But yeah, they were very open-minded, thankfully, and you know, they were fine. And I think, you know, as we were just talking about this a little bit before, is, you know, I think then going forward, I think all family, from what I understand, are probably worried that you're going to become a different person, or you're suddenly going to like alienate from them, you know, or suddenly, you know, come home in this full covered up look, you know, and then like people are going to start talking and that kind of thing. So I think it's really just, for me, thankfully they were fine. But I think also like I've kind of helped that situation in the sense that, you know, for me, I really haven't changed that much in myself, and I really hope that in the positive changes they can see that in me, and you know, I'm very tolerant of them still doing what they want to do, things like Christmas. I was happy to partake in that. You know, I haven't like left family stuff because I've become Muslim. So yeah, I think they have been okay, but I do think that I have, without bigging myself up, I think that I have helped that situation a little bit by doing those things.
Yeah, no, those things help massively, and I think one of the things that gets overlooked in convert care, at least, is the family members of converts, because I think that, you know, if it's not done properly, if it's not managed properly, it can really cause tensions and really exacerbate the issue of conversion more than it might.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I say that as well. And I've been saying like, yeah, my family are fine with it. But at the same time, you know, they haven't really looked into Islam anymore. They, you know, they follow my on Instagram and see what I post here and there. But, you know, it's not like they've gone out and, you know, learning a lot either. They're not super supportive, but that's also not what I kind of need from them anyway. So yeah, I always try and make sure I put that in so it doesn't sound like I have this like rosy family
Yeah.
life situation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone has has that really.
Yeah, I'm just actually seeing Abby said, yeah, I used you as an example to my parents too. So yeah, that's really, really amazing. And I think that's really good as well, is to, you know, show, you know, oh, this is a girl, you know, who looks like me, is from the same country as me or something. And she did it. And, you know, for me, definitely one thing is like, I didn't realize just how many people do revert. And then I realized, you know, and I remember then saying to my mum, actually, like, you think this is like something, you know, weird or, you know, not normal because you don't know about it, and so did I. But actually, like, you know, I'm part of this Facebook group and there's hundreds of women on there and they've all reverted, and actually it's a really common thing to do. So
Here are
definitely
my
using
DMs.
yeah. So that really does help as well. So I'm pleased that yeah, I'm pleased that you're able to use me as an example.
Just on that note, Ellie, do you get contacted a lot from other people exploring or people who've taken the Shahada?
I do, yes. Like generally every single day on average, I do get a message from someone who's saying that they're looking into Islam and they found my videos, or yeah, they've just taken their Shahada or they're going to take their Shahada. So mashallah, it's really, really amazing. Yeah, and some of it's kind of just, you know, can you help me? And it's a bit like, you know, that's quite a harder question to deal with. So yeah, I just kind of obviously encourage people to, you know, just to do some research in that sense and just let themselves, you know, take their time in learning. But yeah, I do get a lot of messages, and I think, yeah, it's also good for me to try and share that to show other people even more that, you know, so a lot of people I get is like, you know, oh, you know, you look like me and you're a Muslim, so I feel like I can relate to you. And I think, you know, it's nice to be able to show that, yeah, there are a lot of, you know, white people who maybe weren't religious before or were Christian or something in Western countries that are reverting. It's a huge, huge amount.
Mm-hmm.
I think, yeah, there's a couple about relationships here actually, which I am happy to answer. I think for me as well, like actually one of my last kind of questions when it came to reverting was like, oh, I'm going to have to marry someone who's Muslim, which wasn't a negative thing, but was just obviously like, oh, wow, that's like a whole pool of the world just gone down. So it was definitely something that I did question. And I think it's a really, you know, important thing to obviously think about if, you know, if you, I guess most people reverting are single, or, you know, maybe you have a partner and then it's, yeah, I don't know how to advise in that sense, but I think, yeah, it's definitely a big thing to think about. But yeah, I haven't really been too worried about it, to be honest. Like I said, like I thought about it. I definitely considered the fact that, wow, yeah, things are going to be very different when it comes to having a relationship, when it comes to getting married. And I think, you know, I'm like, one of my friends who I've met who is Muslim is going through the process of marriage right now. So I've become more aware of like what it is like, and it's very different, you know, to everything that, you know, I grew up with and most of us grew up with. So, you know, for me, obviously, I'm very pleased, alhamdulillah, like I didn't let that put me off, but I think it's, you know, it's definitely something for us to be aware of and to yeah, kind of look into and think about and kind of let go of kind of previous expectations that we might have had of a relationship and how that was. But ultimately for me, like it came back down to like, you know, I really do trust Allah, and I do trust that, thankfully, alhamdulillah, you know, I've always been put on the right path when it comes to work, jobs, you know, past things happening in my life. And so, you know, I really do trust Allah in the process of me, you know, being in a relationship. And that's kind of, yeah, that's kind of what I came down to. So hopefully that might help you as well if you are in a situation like that.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it's one of the first things that I said to new female converts, that, oh, you need to get married now. And it's like one of the worst pieces of advice that you can kind of be given. Like,
Yes.
okay, just become Muslim, right? Let's find you someone to marry who you don't know. Great, sign me up. Yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. And I think yeah, actually, unfortunately, I had that kind of situation kind of when I first did my shahada. Yeah, the imam that actually did it was, he was joking, there was someone getting married there, and he was kind of like, oh, are you looking for someone? And I was just like, no. And he was like, oh, let me know when you are. And he was joking, but I was also like, it's kind of like, yeah, it's a bit inappropriate.
Yeah.
But you know, they're obviously, and also, you know, realizing that there's a lot of like online you know, apps and things like that that are just for Muslims as well. So you know, there are kind of different ways, but yeah, I think, you know, like anything, you know, I'm a big believer anyway, like the idea of, you know, getting to know yourself and being single and kind of have, you know, understanding yourself first, and that being like a good basis for future life and a future relationship. And I think that's also very similar, yeah, to when you're being Muslim, is to really you know, and for me, like I wanted to make sure, you know, that I was kind of like experienced being Muslim for a while before I have a relationship with someone. Like I kind of want to make sure that I've like got all these practices in myself, you know, before meeting someone and then having to like rely on them, or, you know, so that's something that I felt quite passionate about anyway. So
Yeah. No, that sounds like really good advice. Just looking at some of the other comments. get, get a Pakistani man, they're the best.
I'm glad
No
you have
comment.
a good
Yeah,
husband, Emily.
yeah, no comments in the side. I picked that comment out. Sorry, I'm just going through these. Yeah, I mean, it seems like that getting pressured into marriage is definitely one of those, you know, one of those things that rarely works out well. It really kind of rarely ends well when, and I don't think people understand just how big a decision that is, where it's just almost like okay, take shahada, and like for some reason it's like the next step. Therefore, you now have to get married, and it's like, whoa, where did you went from like 1 to 100, and like I missed all the steps in between. how that's
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, it does seem yeah, a lot.
Just going through the comments. Has traveling to Muslim countries been more educational than reading? That's a good question. And hi to Mike. Hope you well, Mike. Good, we got away from Mike. Yay.
I'd say it's a bit of both, really. I think, like I said, it definitely got me to meet more Muslims in person and kind of, you know, understand a little bit more, like maybe, yeah, like a bit more about the culture, but kind of like in a positive way. And definitely, like I said, for me, like going to different countries, Muslim countries, was definitely the point where I was able to question, and it definitely leads me to questioning a lot more, because yeah, I've seen like, okay, well, they do it there, or maybe life is like that for them theirs, and they're all Muslims, so how does this all work? And, you know, and then you compare it to here in the UK, you know, and obviously where there's so many Muslims here in the UK, and, you know, you can't compare like what, you know, a family does in Saudi to what a family does, you know, up in Manchester or something, and, you know, but you're all Muslim. So yeah, it definitely got me to a point where I questioned more, but to learn more, I wouldn't say so. I think yeah, like definitely doing kind of research by myself has been the most important. Yeah, it's been all of my learning, really.
Question: How long were you travel blogging before it became your main income?
Yeah, so I started blogging in about 2015. In 2016, I realized, like, hang on, people make money from this. And then it took me about 2 years after that of working on my blog alongside a full-time job. And then slowly, about a year later, I started to get some paid work from it. And then I decided I wanted to go traveling full-time anyway. So I kind of quit my full-time job and went traveling at full-time at the same time. So then my kind of cost of living was much lower. I went to India first, and, you know, for me, like, I would never have taken the leap to work for myself while still living in London, paying disgusting rent and like tube prices and everything. So I, you know, was like, I had some savings. I was like, okay, I'm going to travel. And then, yeah, it's kind of just built a little bit more from there into like what I do now as like a the same as what I did when I was in London, for example. So yeah, so it took a few years and a bit of a tactical jump in terms of traveling full time at the same time into countries where I didn't have to spend much money, which is fine if I wasn't earning much money.
And when kind of taking a few steps back, when did you did you travel a lot when you were younger? Is it something that you'd always wanted to do? Or?
Well, not as a child, no. So not growing up at all. Yeah, like my parents didn't really travel or anything like that. But I just, yeah, I got to I didn't go to university. So I left school, did my A levels, then worked full time at 18, went on like a few like typical girls holidays and kind of realized like, okay, people are like working out here. What are they doing? And then thankfully I realized like I didn't want to work in a bar in Zante or Ibiza or something. So I ended up spending a summer instead in the US. I did Camp America, actually at a Christian camp, which was quite interesting, teaching girls how to horse ride, which yeah, was much better than working in a bar, thankfully. And I went for that option. So yeah, that was in 2010 and I was 20 at the time. So that's what really kicked off my wanderlust, as I say. And I worked with a couple of different girls from the UK, from the US, from Australia, New Zealand. And then as soon as I was there, I was like, right, my next trip is to go to Australia and to do my work and holiday there. And so I kind of got home, worked for about a year, and then went off to Australia when I was 21. And then from there, it's kind of just been constant on-off travel. So really all of my 20s basically. But yeah, that was just not something that I did growing up though.
Mm-hmm. And might be a silly question, do you get homesick much when you're traveling?
I don't know. I normally miss my dog more than anything. More my dog more than my parents in the past. Yeah, for me, I'm like I think traveling makes you become quite an adaptable person, but I do, I adapt very well and I enjoy my own company. So, recently I've been sharing on my travel account, for example, I've been doing quite a few solo trips and actually had a conversation with someone recently who said, she said, usually when I see people in a cafe or something on their own, I think, oh, poor them, they're on their own, they're lonely. And I'm like, no, I was like, on this trip, I didn't even, a lot of trips I go on, I don't even ask my friends to come with me or anyone to come with me because I just love time by myself and I just enjoy my own company. So I kind of should remember what you just asked, but yeah, so I'm happy by myself and everything.
Mm-hmm. And do you think since coming back to the UK, do you prefer to travel more alone? Would you say?
I think so. Yeah, here in the UK, like I'm happy to do stuff alone. I'm happy to do stuff more with friends. It's a bit of more of a mixture. But for me, I've always been a big advocate. Like the reason of why I went traveling on my own for the first time is I'm a big advocate of like, don't wait for someone to come with you. I think it's so hard to like plan, especially as an adult, get someone to have the same time off as you, have the same budget as you, want to do maybe the same things as you, even if they're like your best friends. And if you wait for someone to go with you, you're literally gonna be waiting your whole life, and often then just never happens. And I've seen it happen with friends and people in the past. And I think just taking control of your own, that's kind of taking control of your own life. Even if you're in a relationship, I've always said this to people, like if your partner doesn't want to go, like just go on your own. Just because you're in a relationship, even if you're married, it doesn't mean that you can't go somewhere on your own and enjoy that time on your own. You don't have to rely on your partner. So yeah, that's something I'm an advocate of.
Oh, good stuff. Yeah. Good stuff. No, I'm sure.
And actually, and obviously now it's going to be interesting kind of traveling more as a Muslim and kind of looking into, I guess, obviously I'm not wearing the hijab really much at the moment, but and obviously I've had Muslim girls obviously also ask me like, what is it like to travel as a Muslim? I'm like, I really can't tell you, because obviously on the outside, I don't really look much different and I haven't done too much travel, but yeah, that would be an interesting thing going forward for me anyway. And I'm looking forward to a new chapter in that sense as well.
Good. It seems like COVID's been a really interesting period. I mean, at New Beginnings, we've had a lot of people. We've been going just over a year now, and we've had people kind of take the Shahada during the COVID, and that was really a time when I think the whole world really was forced to reflect on their own lives and where they were at. And as a Muslim, you can look at that period, and obviously notwithstanding all of the the people who passed away, loved ones, etc. The wisdom in how when life's moving so quickly, how when the world suddenly comes to a halt and everyone's like, okay, now what? And you're kind of forced to think and reflect on things that you've probably didn't have the time to, I guess. So we've certainly seen that in New Beginnings, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and like for me, I've been very grateful of that kind of just time of standing still and not having to, also when it came to prayer practice, for example, and there's a question here, I'll just answer in a second. I feel like I've been able to really establish a good prayer practice because like I've been at home all the time, and so it's been really, really easy, and I haven't really had to worry about praying in other areas because I've been at home. And I think that's definitely made it easy. And I have so much respect for people who reverted in the past, obviously pre-COVID or now, and you're still in trying to go to an office job and trying to fit things in around there, or maybe trying to slowly change how you dress, and you're with people that you see all the time and you saw before you were Muslim and you're seen after. And so I really respect it must be a really, really hard transition. So I do feel very grateful that, I've had the chance for COVID just to be on hold. And like now I feel like slowly, obviously life is opening up a bit more. And I'm also aware that like I probably had it really, really easy as well. And all my challenges are probably like yet to come, not all of them, but I'm definitely going to have challenges coming forward as well through that. But like, how do I pray out of home in the UK? So travel prayers, like I won't go into now, but obviously there's like the travel prayers. So you really pray 3 times when you're a certain miles away from your home, are a real blessing because they do make life a lot easier. And actually, I think because of the times in the UK at the moment, like Maghrib is so late. So when I've been on my trips, it's like, you're waiting around for like 9:30, to even be able to do that last set of prayers. So I really haven't struggled at the moment because I think that with travel prayers as one, so it's obviously less prayers that you have to do. 2 is the times of the prayers, they're so spread out that actually like I've been kind of around accommodation. And actually relating to travel prayers is that you do have much more flexibility on the time where you are, that window of prayer. And so that really hasn't made it too difficult for me at all so far. So alhamdulillah for that. And again, that's, when you think about Islam like that, is we've been given these things like travel prayers to make things easy for us. So that has been given to us, and it's nice to notice that as well.
Definitely, yeah. Question, next travel destination.
So where am I going next? So nothing really amazing. Well, I'm going to London in a couple of weeks, and then I'm going to just popping back to Dorset. But I haven't got anything else booked actually. I'm kind of just hoping we change this whole quarantine thing in the UK, because I've had some really cool emails, but everything's just been really difficult. So so just London next at the moment, but nothing else too much. There was one about just shopping online about dresses. So at the moment I've just been kind of shopping still in quite high street stores. Obviously I'm aware that like I don't probably dress maybe as modestly as other Muslim women may choose to. I feel like that's something that I'm still kind of on my journey for, so I'm aware of that. But Modernese, however you say it, is a really good one for modest clothing, definitely online. And then there's a couple also like really, I know it's sometimes hard to find, but trying to find like shops that are created by Muslim women, like the sports clothes that I've been wearing recently, the Fit Generation, like that's like a modest sports top, and that was set up by a Muslim woman in New Zealand, for Muslim women. So definitely, supporting those kind of businesses is also good because, they've created it for Muslim women and you're supporting Muslim women's business. So I do suggest like trying to look into those as well. I know they can be quite hard to find, but Instagram is definitely a good way of finding them. Am I apprehensive traveling on your own to a Muslim country without a guardian? Who would expect you to have? to be honest, like I traveled to Saudi Arabia by myself. Saudi Arabia is like the strictest Muslim country, and it's fine. No one expects you to be, I mean, there's differences, especially as a foreigner. I'm aware that as a foreign white woman, there are differences. But for example, in Saudi, you know, tourists are treated very, very differently to what you know, a Saudi woman would be, or even maybe a woman that maybe looks Arab, who could be from you know, a nearby country, or from Saudi. But yeah, the whole kind of idea of, I've had people saying like, you can't travel on your own anymore because now you're a Muslim, is not something that I'm even entertaining. It's not, without going into too much details, I'm very passionate about it. But yeah, it's not, that's my travel style and how I travel solo, how I do things is not changing at all. And I don't believe it should. So it's not something that I'm looking into or worried about.
Final question.
Yes.
What is the appeal of traveling? Is there something that which you look forward to regardless of where you visit?
Yeah, for me, I just really love the newness. Like for me, I always say like, I just love going somewhere that I've never been before. And that could be, you know, a new town or a new city, you know, down the road from me, just as much as it can be, you know, somewhere on the other side of the world. I really do just love, being somewhere that I've never been before. I love just seeing like day-to-day life. You know, I like that I can kind of look at a map and just see day-to-day life, you know, and I think also, especially then when it comes to, like negative media and stuff, you just realize that. I had this conversation actually with someone just very, very recently, you know, that people are just getting on with their day-to-day lives, you know, and it's and generally, you know, people are obviously in a lot of places, you know, they're happy, and it's like it's very the same, you know. I just find it interesting. I just really find it interesting to see what people's just general life is, you know, whether that's, you know, on an island in Thailand, or, you know, in Saudi or something like that. And I think just just being able to see something new as well, it just, that's kind of where I get all my excitement from when it comes to travel.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, we've kept you longer than we had planned.
No, everyone as well, but thank you so much.
It's been an honor, and it's been a pleasure to have you. I'm sure it's been inspiring, you know, because, you know, just going back to some of the things that you were mentioning, just seeing someone who looks like them, you know, it's just, it makes such a difference. And hopefully if people are thinking, you know, there you go, we've got Ellie here. He looks and talks a similar background and whatnot. So thank you for joining, and thank you for all the questions. We've had people joining from all over the place. I think the US have been representing in the comments.
Oh, good.
And there's locals, a lot of familiar names here. So this is going to be uploaded onto YouTube in the coming week, hopefully. If I can do a shameless plug of one of the courses that we teach at New Beginnings. So we do a 10-week course. We teach it all year round. They're called Firm Foundations, and that covers kind of the basics of Islam, and it's taught by a few of the teachers here at New Beginnings, and it's in a very relaxed manner. It's specifically for converts, or regardless of how old into their, how far into their journey they are, whether that's a few months or a few years, or if people just want to learn more, they just want to learn more about Islam. We've kind of tailored the course. We've selected what information we feel is most important to know as someone who wants to learn about Islam. And we've put that in a 10-week course. So we've only had one kind of introductory session. If the admin could post a link to that, I think there's still time to join. We've got kind of former students here, with current students, and we've had people joining from all over the world. And alhamdulillah, a lot have come via after Ellie sharing it. We actually did a shahada, so we became Muslim a couple of hours ago, and that's so we asked her, okay, so how did you hear about New Beginnings? And they said, oh, Ellie shared. We follow Ellie on Instagram, so alhamdulillah, I think Allah is definitely using you as a door for people to find guidance, and it means to find guidance. And I pray that continues to be the case. And I pray for everyone here too. May Allah bless you in your journey wherever you are, and make things easier for you if you're going through any difficulties with family or in your personal journeys. I hope Allah, and I pray Allah makes it easy for you guys. And I hope Allah reconciles the hearts. And for people who are thinking, I hope this has helped. And please do follow New Beginnings on Instagram. And for those who want to follow Ellie, who aren't following Ellie already, you're the Wandering Quinn on.
Yeah, the Wandering Quinn on Instagram, and then I've also got _equinn, which I think is what you sent around in the email and stuff. So yeah, both accounts there.
Fantastic. And you've got tons of stuff on YouTube too, which is
yes,
which is good.
Yeah, and yeah, like I said, YouTube really helped me. So I feel like my nature is like wanting to create content and share stuff. So I really wanted to be able to also make videos that kind of I wish I could have seen or seen a different opinion on. So I really do try and focus on that, and I've got some more coming soon as well, inshallah.
Good stuff. We look forward to it also. Thanks again, Ellie, for joining us, and thanks to everyone for joining us and for staying with us for so long. Alhamdulillah, it's been almost 1.5 hours, but alhamdulillah, it looks like people really enjoyed this conversation. Cool.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you so much.
Take care. Big Assalamu alaikum, Ellie, and to everyone else.